Welcome to the Lifestyle Architects Show,
featuring interviews with inspiring and successful lifestyle entrepreneurs and helping you to design your life, build your online business, and live your dream now.
There is no better time than the present to make a change that will bring you true happiness and make your dreams a reality.
Changing his life and helping you change yours.
It's your host, Navid Moazzez.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Navid Moazzez, and welcome to a very special episode of the Lifestyle Architects. I don't know if today's guest needs a very long introduction. He's quite famous, to say the least, and all of his books has influenced me a lot personally. That's why I'm super excited to have Robert Greene on my show to talk more about his book Mastery and kind of how to master anything and achieve greatness in both business and life. So for those of you who are not familiar with Robert's amazing work, he's an American author and speaker known for his books on strategy, power, and seduction. He has written 4 international bestsellers: The 48 Laws of Power, The Art of Seduction, The 33 Strategies of War, and The 50th Law. And as I said, in this interview, we are getting more into this fascinating topic of mastery, which I'm very passionate about myself. So we are going to talk about the 6 keys to mastery, the secret to ultimate power over yourself and your craft. And in this interview, we are getting into a lot of good stuff, so I'm not going to hold you much longer here. But feel free to head over to the show notes page for this interview. We are going to link up everything we talk about in the interview there over at navid.me/13. So navid.me/13, that's the show notes page for today's interview. And you can also sign up for my exclusive newsletter to get more greatness sent to your inbox weekly. So without further ado, let the journey begin. And here's Robert Greene. Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Navid Moazzez and welcome to the Lifestyle Architects Show. Today I have a very special guest on the show. It's Robert Greene, and he's a 3-time New York Times bestselling author of the 48 Laws of Power, The Art of Seduction. He's written the 33 Strategies of War, the 50th Law, and today we're also here to talk more about mastery, kind of how to master anything to achieve greatness in business and life. So I would like to welcome you, Robert. You've been an influencer for me, and I know for a lot of other people as well. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Navid. I'm very honored to be on it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I wish I were in Stockholm, but I'm not.
I wish I were in LA. We can trade places.
Okay, it's a good idea.
That's a very good idea. I get some sun, you get some of our spring now. But
yeah, what I would love would be having it light past midnight. I'm so
yeah. In the summer we have it perfect here. It's like light all day, so and the night. So basically, I wanted to talk more about this topic on mastery because that's something I'm very fascinated about myself, and I kind of studied this. I read your books and I read a lot of other books as well. But what brought you into this topic in the first place? Why are you passionate about this, and why did you do so much research?
Well, it's a good question. I am passionate about it. Basically, I had spent so many years researching and writing about very powerful people in all different aspects of life, politics, business, whatever, every conceivable profession. And I noticed, certain patterns that very successful people seem to follow. I remember in particular, I was writing a lot about Napoleon Bonaparte for my war book. And I got very interested in what seemed to be a process that he had gone through, arriving at a point where he had this feel for strategy and battle that people thought was mystical, that it was an occult power, because he seemed to know things that were impossible to know. But in fact, if you could rationally explain it, if you looked at his background and how he had studied war and how he got to that point, it's all very rational. And so I was also a bit angry because I'm so tired of the cliches that still permeate our culture about talent and genius, as if it's a genetic thing, like people are born to be great, therefore I'm not great because I wasn't born that way. a really annoying cliche that is so much against what we know about in neuroscience, new recent discoveries in neuroscience. So a mix of excitement that I wanted to share, this kind of process that I believe I've seen in powerful people in history, and then the powerful people, successful people I've met since my first book came out. And then a little bit of frustration and anger about, I think, a stereotype in our culture that it's about time we destroy, and I really wanted to help destroy it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something I found. We can talk more about this as we go here, but took me probably, I don't know, 26, 27 years to kind of find what I wanted to do in life. And I was brought up by this feeling, yeah, you have to go through this path. You have to go through university. You have to go there and you're going to get a good career. You're going to go, I mean, I was in law school, and that's kind of what you're telling me about, that these people, that you have talent for something, you have to go there maybe because your parents did so or whatever. And I think that's kind of the wrong perception and not the way it should be. So
Yeah.
basically, any of your other books here, did they kind of bring you to write this amazing piece, Master? Because it's a very long book. It's over 300 pages, I believe. I listened to the audiobook, but it's 16 hours. So
Oh, well, long books are all relative,
yeah.
In my idea, 300 is a short book.
Yeah, I mean, for
But
business books, I think it's kind of.
okay.
I mean, I see a lot of personal development books, and they
Well,
are around this
I,
length.
I, I have a different philosophy. I don't write books as a gimmick or a
Mm,
formula, or I'm not even really thinking about how many books I'm going to sell. I want to really nail the idea. So if I want to explain to you, the reader, what mastery is, I'm not going to condense it so it's like baby food so
mm,
you can swallow it in an hour. You're not going to get very far in life if you
mm,
want everything short and condensed. You have to
mm,
have a patience enough to get through a 300-page book.
mhm,
But as far as, my previous books are concerned, every book that I write the new book seems to come out of the old book. And I mentioned Napoleon had a big influence on me when I started to think about him, because what I want to tell the reader is mastery is this sort of a form of intelligence that anybody can reach.
mm,
It almost seems like an intuition where, let's say, like a Steve Jobs, he's been doing this for so many years in technology and design that he almost doesn't have to think anymore. Great ideas come to him. That's the pattern that happens to masters. It happened in Napoleon. I want to explain it to you. And so I thought I explained it very clearly in the war book. And then I wrote a book with 50 Cent.
mm,
And strangely enough, 50 kind of inspired mastery because he sort of fits the pattern that I'm trying to describe. And here I have all of these sort of dead people that I'm writing about, like Napoleon, Louis the 14th. Here was a live example of somebody who came from the worst background in America, basically starts with zero, in fact, starts with negatives, and
mhm,
he's able to achieve a pretty high position of power as an artist and as an entrepreneur. And he fit this process perfectly that we will be talking about
mhm.
it in the book. So those were the sort of the two previous books that really inspired me to write Mastery.
Yeah, definitely. And this is interesting how you came to work with 50 Cent through the 50s power there and 50s law. And how did you meet him, and kind of how did he inspire you in that sense? Like,
Well, we met because my first book, The 48 Laws of Power, is really popular in the hip hop world. For various reasons. It's a pretty much a manual about how to navigate a very political environment, and there's nothing more political than the music industry. So a lot of rappers love that book, and 50 really really liked it, and he told me it helped him a lot in dealing with the music industry. So we met, and we discovered that we kind of got along well. It's sort of one of those things you can't really explain. You meet somebody, and for some reason, you hit it off. You have a good energy together. Because I've met celebrities before, and I would never want to write a book with them. He and I had a nice connection, and what inspired me is So many people want to complain about their circumstances in life. Like, I didn't get to go to the great university. My parents didn't have a lot of money. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. Therefore, I couldn't reach where I wanted to go in life. And here you had 50. He has nothing. He's raised by his grandparents. His mother was killed when he was 8 years old. He never knew his father. He's like dealing drugs on the street because it's the only way to make money. Everything is against him.
Mm-hmm.
No rational reason why somebody like that can ever escape the hood and become successful. So how did he do it? And he did it because, as you know from my book, there's a process. He discovered his life's task, which was music and business. Your life's task, your vocation in life can be a combination of things. For him, it was music and business. He went through an incredibly intense apprenticeship under Jam Master Jay, and etc. He developed all of the skills that I talk about in the book, and he emerged at a level of being highly creative with his music and with his business instincts. So the seriousness, when we look at people who are successful, like a 50 Cent or whomever, we think of only the glitz, the hype, the success and power they have, but we don't see the hours and hours of practice, the failures, the things that they learned along the way. And he's a great example of the resilience that you need to get past all of the barriers, the love of your work. He just fit perfectly the model that I have for achieving mastery. And the book that we wrote together isn't about mastery. It's about fear and overcoming fear, which is an extremely important concept for entrepreneurs. But I did have a chapter in the 50th Law about mastery, which then turned into the whole book.
Wow, this is inspiring, and that's very, very true. That, I mean, no matter where you come from, you can achieve this mastery, and that's what I want to get into a little bit now. We have like you talk about the 6 keys to mastery, the secret to ultimate power over yourself and your craft. So can you talk a little bit about that, kind of how you can discover your life's calling and all this you talk about?
Well, it's the first step towards mastery, and it's the most important. In fact, if you enter a career that doesn't really suit you, that doesn't connect to you emotionally or personally, you're never going to reach mastery. Forget about it. You shouldn't even bother reading my book. If you go into law school because your parents, like you did, tell you to, and you stay there because you like the money, that's a fine choice, but it's not the path to mastery. And the reason is very simple. I'm not trying to be mystical here. I know people talk about do what you love and all of that, and it becomes a cliche. I'm not looking at it that way. It's very practical. The way the human brain is constructed, you don't learn anything well enough, intensely enough, unless you're focused and concentrated. And you can't concentrate on something that bores you, that you don't find interesting, that you don't connect to. You know how law can be a very dry subject already just by its nature. And if you're not somebody really, really excited by law, you're going to tune out. And you might be able to do okay, as a lawyer, but you're not going to be great, because in your 30s, you're going to start tuning out and start getting interested in other things. You won't have that focused energy. So the reason why you have to discover your life's task is, in order to become really great at something, you have to be able to do it for the 10,000 hours. And you can't do the 10,000 hours unless you're excited, unless there's an element of desire. It doesn't mean everything is going to be fun. That's a misconception. It doesn't mean everything you do will be orgasmic. It certainly isn't. It just means that deep inside, you're on a journey to something that you want to be on and that connects to you personally. So once you understand that, the question as you pose it is, what is my life's task? It's the key question. And there's no one simple, tiny formula for everybody. Everybody is different. Some people know what their calling is in life at the age of 5. An Einstein a Steve Jobs, a Da Vinci, a Mozart. I can go back and show you with all of those people how they figured it out at a very early age in their life. It's just like this one straight line all the way to mastery. They never deviate from what they love and what they know they love. But a lot of people aren't that way. A lot of people make missteps like going to law school, etc. So it's a path that you have to follow in which you have to get in touch with who you are, what you really love, looking back on your childhood, on those things that really excite you, that excite you in a way that's kind of pre-verbal, where you have like a deep curiosity, you still have incredible love and interest in this thing. It's a matter of looking at the things that you hate. You've discovered that you don't like working in large companies because you hate the politics. It's a sign that you're probably a very independent person who should be an entrepreneur. On and on and on. I can take you through various steps that'll help you get that way. But everybody's different. And the main thing is you're taking a step back and looking at your life and seeing, am I on a path towards something that excites me, that I have a personal connection to? My own story is that I always knew I wanted to be a writer from a pretty early age, but I couldn't figure out what I wanted to write. So let's say you know that you love technology, but you don't know what part of technology you love, or you love music, but you don't know what element of music or what aspect. For me, I just explored. I tried journalism, I tried Hollywood, I tried television, I tried being a novelist on my own. Nothing quite clicked. But all through those 15, 16 years that I'm trying all of these things, I'm learning all these skills about writing, and finally a moment arrives where I meet a man who makes books, and he asks me for an idea for a book, and I go, wow, that's what I should be doing. I should be writing books. That's my life's path. That's what all of the experience has been leading up to. That will happen to you in your 20s, your 30s, or your 40s at some point, if you begin the process of looking at where you're going and whether it's something suited to you.
This is very interesting because I went through this path. I was, after kind of my high school, I went into law school, and I mean, it felt right at the time, maybe 3 years. It was okay. I got good grades, all this. I thought I was going to go into a career in law, but then I stumbled upon other stuff, personal development, and I figured out this is not my true calling in life. And would you say that those years was kind of a waste of my time, or was it a learning experience for me?
I want you to think of your life as nothing is wasted. So my books are all about changing the reader from the inside out. I'm not going to change how you physically look. I'm going to change how you think about the world. So nothing is wasted. Everything that you've gone through in life is a learning experience. Let's say you worked at a fast food restaurant. What could be worse? Like a crap job where you're making hardly any money. Well, you're going to meet weird, interesting people. You're probably going to be working with people who have some psychological problems, and you're going to learn about human nature and dealing with people. Nothing is wasted. I want you to have that attitude. So if you go to law school, law school is a discipline, and it teaches you, first of all, there's a lot of writing involved. So I know a lot of lawyers are pretty good with writing. They can organize their thoughts quite well. It teaches you about arguing and arts of persuasion. It's a good discipline. And if you now segue into a new aspect in your life, let's say you discover that you should be doing these podcasts, you have skills to draw on, which are, skills of organization, discipline, making a good argument, organizing your thoughts. Nothing is ever wasted. And the reason why you need to think like that is, let's say you arrive at a point where you're 30 years old, where you haven't been on the right path, where you did go to law school, and you think, I should have been a writer or a musician. I made the wrong choice. What you want to do is you don't want to suddenly give up where you've been going and make a 180-degree change in your life. That's unrealistic and those kinds of things never work. In other words, to suddenly drop law and try and become a rock star or a writer. What you want to do is you want to take the skills that you have, the lawyering skills, and use them, adapt them towards a new direction, whatever that might be. So nothing in your life is ever wasted. Your eyes are open. You're constantly learning. You could go take a job. I had in my life 60 different jobs before I've started writing a book. Some really bad jobs. I worked in a detective agency, for example. It was a very depressing job. But if I had the attitude of, oh man, I hate my job, life sucks, I'm just terrible, then I wouldn't have gotten anything out of that horrible job. I would have wasted the 3 or 4 months I was there. But my eyes were open. I was saying, I'm going to learn about people. This is an amazing place to learn about people. And some of the things that I learned, I now incorporated in the 48 Laws of Power. So nothing in your life is wasted. You're always using skills that you acquired earlier on in life and finding a way to adapt them and to combine previous skills.
Yeah, I mean, I think so as well. And then, I mean, in my case, it was like I went there, but then I kind of had to kind of acquire new skills. What I'm doing now with entrepreneurship, I'm helping other people with personal branding, all this stuff. Since I got in there, I didn't have the skills, but I learned them. Kind of what you're talking about here, the 10,000 hour rule, where you have to really practice your craft, because I'm really passionate about what I'm doing now with my brand, with my personal brand online. And that's, I can really work with that every single day. And that's why I think also people should choose something they are passionate about. I mean, that's something you talk about in the book, how you can turn actually passion. I mean, you're passionate about something, but you turn it into expertise.
Yes.
So let's dig into this a little bit.
Well, you can be in love with something, but you don't necessarily master it. The thing is, if you look at the neuroscience, the study of the 10,000 hours is a great study. I think the man who discovered it is Anders Ericsson. I'm not sure, he might be Swedish.
It sounds like it.
He has a name like that.
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant study because what he did is he studied for many years, 20, 30 years, people who were great at chess and music, particularly chess, because chess is a very interesting skill to study, and a very telling skill. And he discovered that at a certain point of 10,000 hours, meaning a chess player who's practiced for 10,000 hours, who's practiced, had games, and has been reading and studying chess for that amount of time, reaches an incredibly high, suddenly reaches a new level of playing. It's not suddenly, but at or near that point, they become much more creative when it comes to the game of chess. And he went back and discovered that it was similar. You could make similar things about music and other professions. And what it means is that something happens in the brain when, after you've had so much experience, so much practice, all of these bits of knowledge in your brain you're now able to make really rapid connections and have that kind of intuition that I mentioned earlier. That's the point you want to get to. Now, it's easy to say that about chess or sports. It's a little more abstract when you're talking about business. But I like to look at someone like Steve Jobs. If you look at the biography, and you can see the hours that he went through, fascinated and obsessed with technology and design, and the first go at Apple and starting a business. And it wasn't really until he came back to Apple in 98, 99 that he was a master, that he had that kind of creativity, because he'd spent so many hours dealing with problems in a practical, experiential way that suddenly he was able to think on a higher level. It's not a question of the size of your brain when you were born or anything. It's a question of, can you get to that 10,000 hour point? Do you have the patience, the persistence, the resilience to accumulate so many hours of practice, transforming your love, as you say, into expertise or into mastery? And the thing is, there's going to be boredom involved. There's going to be setbacks. People are going to criticize you. It's never going to be easy. And a lot of people stop. they hit a wall, they fail, their business that they started didn't work, and they go, oh damn, I'm gonna just go get a job because I can't stand this. They hit a wall. Are you going to be able to get past those inevitable walls that happen to every single great person or every great master? You can do it if you really truly are excited and interested and love the subject that you've chosen. So if you really love what you're doing, you're not thinking of the 10,000 hours as you're probably not thinking, counting the hours as you, because it doesn't feel like that. So that's the power that happens if you choose your life's task, the vocation that you were meant to do. In my book, I explain it very rational in a particular way. You're born as a unique individual, literally with the brain that you have, the way it's wired, with your own experiences that you have in life. Nobody else has your experiences. Nobody else has your DNA. So you're meant to take in your career to create something that reflects that basic uniqueness about you, to create a website like you have done that reflects your particular interests and your particular experience. And the reason why is if you get to a point where no one else can do what you do, if you're the only one that can write that book or create that website, then you have all the power. You're going to create something really interesting and unique in this world. That's the end game, and that's where you'll get if you sort of take that first critical step.
That's very interesting. And something else here is that, especially in my case, that I find a lot of people, they can lose their creativity along the way. Maybe they have some failures. Maybe in my case, in law school, you know how it is. Maybe I had to study all the time, and they force us to read certain chapters. All this, it's not I could choose myself, which is in the case with maybe entrepreneurship, what I'm doing now. I can choose to read all your books because I find them interesting. Yeah. It's not in law school. You have to read certain books. So I lost my creativity. And now I'm getting it back when I have the freedom to kind of choose whatever I want to read. And so what would you say to them? Like that's very common, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's a great story. I mean, I've met so many people, especially in the last few years, who have a similar story to you, where they pursued law or something in the corporate world and they hated it. And then they were able to get out and find, the internet is amazing for that, where you can create something that's totally your own and you can write your own ticket. Maybe you don't make immediately as much money, but you're much more excited. The thing about creativity is I want to demystify it a little bit in my book, because like genius and talent, we have this cliche, this sort of aura around the idea of creativity. And I want to show you that the human brain is naturally creative. If you look at children, or you think back when you were a child, your brain was naturally making all sorts of amazing connections between weird ideas. That's why, when you talk to children, they'll completely surprise you with these ideas, these concepts that they suddenly associate in some very unusual way. The brain is naturally creative. If you've ever tried to meditate, like I practice meditation, and you try and turn your brain completely off, you'll notice that without even trying, the brain is like on autopilot, making all of these weird connections between ideas, or in your dreams. The brain is a naturally creative instrument. It wants to connect things. And you lose it over time because you become what I call conventional. You learn certain rules that you have to follow. You study something that doesn't interest you. You start thinking about things like making money, which becomes the most important thing in your life. And suddenly your brain goes around in a circle. Steve Jobs compared it to a record on a turntable that just goes round and round in these same grooves. You lose that natural creativity, but the amazing thing is, like you said, you always can get it back at any age. And I have examples in the book of people suddenly in their 30s, 40s, even in their 50s, regaining that amazing creativity that children have. Because what happens is, if you follow this path that I'm talking about, and your brain has so many connections that can possibly go on between bits of knowledge that you've learned, There are certain exercises that you can take that I describe in the book for kind of loosening up your mind, for getting rid of that conventional pattern thinking that you have. And suddenly, if you're able to be loose and follow some of these strategies, you're going to burst out with creativity almost naturally, like a child does. So it's not something that some people are born with. Mozart wasn't born creative. It's something that you develop over time. And I really want to sort of finally put a hammer to that stupid idea that creativity is about how you were born or taking drugs or just being in the moment. No, it's a function of your experience and your ability to overcome the kind of tightening of the mind that occurs over the years.
But would you say that someone can kind of master anything? Like, do you have a skill set maybe for, let's say I want to play the piano, or I want to become a athlete or something, or is it something you can really practice this and you're passionate about it and you can become that person?
That's a good question, because realistically, the answer is no. There are people who may love the piano, but they're not personally, there is something that they don't have. Maybe they don't have a good sense of rhythm that they're born with, or they don't. I'm kind of tone deaf myself, so I could never really be great at the piano. You may love basketball, but you happen to be born 5'6". You're not very tall, so there are constraints. But this is how I look at that. If you love the piano, but you're not really, your fingers or your head isn't wired for it, it doesn't mean that something is wrong. It just means that there are other aspects of what excites you is music. So you should be somehow getting into music as a career. And you don't have to be playing the piano. You could become a critic, or you could become a teacher, or you could take up another instrument or something else, or you could become a lawyer dealing with music. There are other avenues to explore. In the United States, I happen to love basketball. There's a coach, a former coach of the New York team, the New York Knicks, Jeff Van Gundy. He happened to be very short, loved basketball. You can't play. He became a coach, and that is his way of fulfilling that natural excitement he had with it. So you've got to choose something related to what you're interested in. And if you realize you're not physically gifted for the music, you choose something else that's related, because you'll still be able to have that passion and that level of desire.
Yeah, very interesting. That's the same kind of, I'm passionate about soccer. I played for many years as well, but if you see soccer coaches, they are not always the best soccer players. That's the same thing. And they often become even better coaches than some players, and that's very powerful.
Yeah, I have an example in Mastery of the greatest boxing trainer of our era, Freddie Roach. He's one of the people I interviewed, because I also interviewed contemporary masters for the book. And he, from the age of 4, his father forced all of his sons to become boxers. And he, from the age of 4, he was boxing, and he liked it, but he didn't love it. And he became a professional boxer, and he was a professional for 8 years. And he was good, but he wasn't great. And he had to retire at the age of 26. And here's someone whose whole life, 22 years of just practicing boxing, and now he can't do it anymore. He can't make money off of it. What's he going to do? And his whole life could have just fallen apart at that moment, but he one day wandered back into the gym and just started helping out the younger boxers, just sort of helping them out. And he realized, like I realized, I should be writing books. He realized, I was meant to be a trainer. Like you said, he's not the player because for whatever reason he's not good enough, but he'd be an amazing coach. And in coaching, he doesn't have to take punches, but he can be competitive and strategic. He can do everything that he loves. So it's never like exactly a straight line to that perfect job. You've got to be awake and aware and see what fits and doesn't. And sometimes it's something not exactly what you thought it would be, but it's related enough that it excites you.
Yeah, I found the story very powerful in the book when I read it, and also and this person has also a lot of. Now we get into another point of the which is very important to achieving mastery, which is kind of the mentorship and apprenticeship, where you, as you talk about. And can you tell us a bit about the importance? I know for myself, I had many mentors in sports. I have it now in business, and they're helping me to achieve my goals both in business and life. So you can talk a little bit about that and explore it.
About mentors?
Yeah, and mentors and the power of it, the dynamic, and kind of how you can find it's. I mean, we all most people, they know it's important with mentors, but it's so hard to kind of find the right one for you and the right fit. So
Well, the reason I talk about it is, I'm trying to tell you that there are no shortcuts to mastery. And we all love to think that there are shortcuts, like some app that'll give it to us quickly. And I'm giving you the bad news. There's really no such thing when it comes to being great at your career. But there is one sort of shortcut, and that's finding a great mentor, because there's someone who can look at you in real time and say, Navid, this is what you should do, what you shouldn't do. This is what you're doing wrong. This is what you need to practice. Don't go over there, go here. They're going to save you years of mistakes. They're going to streamline the process, and they're going to make you focus on what you really need to practice and get better at. So it could normally take 10 years of doing something to reach that level of creativity that I'm talking about. With a really good mentor, maybe in 5 or 6 years or 7 years, if it works and it really clicks. So the key thing, though, is how do you find that person? Because it isn't always easy. First of all, you don't have to find a mentor. There are examples of people. I have in the book Thomas Edison, one of the greatest inventors and entrepreneurs who ever lived. He never had a real mentor. He used books as kind of mentors. But so it's not, you don't have to. So get that out of the way. The other thing is, you don't want to look for a mentor just because you feel the need for it, and you have to have something to offer the other person. It's like a mutual coming together. He or she is getting someone that can help him or her with their work, and can do some of the drudge work, etc. You can help organize their life, and in return, you're getting all this brilliance from them. So you don't look for a mentor until you're ready. If you're fresh out of college, you don't have anything to offer necessarily. You don't have any skills, any experience. You're too naive. You're too sort of stupid for me to just be about it. And so no one's going to want you as their mentor. And if they do want you, it's probably for all the wrong reasons. They really want you as a slave, and you're never going to really learn anything. So maybe don't look for one until you've got a couple of years under your belt of jobs where you learn about the world, you have organizational skills, you're disciplined, etc. Okay, that's rule number one. And number two is, there's a combination. Sometimes people cross your path by accident who can serve as a good mentor, and in other cases, you have to go out there and look and try and find him or her. The thing to keep in mind is it's a very important relationship in your life. It's like your second father or mother. You have a chance to choose it, and you have to be careful because some people are bad mentors in the world. They don't want to let you discover who you are. They want to keep you under their thumb. They're going to inhibit you in some way. They are going to relive some of their own psychological problems on you, and it can turn into a negative experience. So you want to choose someone that you identify with almost emotionally. They share similar tastes and inclinations. You can say, in 5 or 10 years, I want to be that person. If they cross your path, if that kind of person crosses your path, you got to make them into your mentor somehow. If not, you can go out and find them. People are more willing to serve as a mentor than you might believe if you have something to offer them. But as an example, in my book, I talk about one of the contemporary masters that I interviewed, a woman named Yoki Matsuoka, who's a brilliant robotics engineer, etc. She was going to MIT in the robotics department there, and there was a professor who everybody else hated because he was a rebel, had really long hair, was kind of nasty, wasn't very nice to people. He just was he had sort of a fuck you attitude, if I can. Um, and she had the same attitude. She grew up playing tennis and she loved John McEnroe and Andre Agassi. She was a rebel her whole life. She goes, this is the person who has the same spirit and mood as I have. I can really feel, I would like to be like him. That's the kind of thing that you want. It's not just an intellectual connection. It's also an emotional thing where you look up to and you admire this person, and there's that kind of connection going on.
I mean, that's interesting as well, because you mentioned here that you should develop some skills that you can offer a mentor. I mean, obviously you can always pay for a mentor, but in this case, it might be that you have some mutual value to offer. So the mentor might even be of service for free if you have something great to offer. And that's what I found. Maybe you cannot, if I'm going to find a business mentor, maybe I don't help him in business specifically, but I have some skills maybe that person needs. That's what I found useful for myself, and also that I identify myself with that person maybe in 5-10 years. And that's been kind of what you're saying. So I'm glad you shared this here as well.
Yeah, and you must get over the idea of money. Let's make this clear. I talk about your apprenticeship years, which are generally your 20s, but you're apprentice your whole life. You're always learning things and learning new skills. But the real hardcore apprenticeship is more or less in your 20s. And the key to success, what you want to do is you want to gain as many skills as possible, real skills that you've mastered in 2, 3, 4 different areas. For you, being a lawyer, writing, whatever the other skills are, starting a business. When you get to that point that you can take those 3 or 4 skills, now in your 30s, you can combine them in a new business or a podcast or whatever that's going to really kick ass. But the thing is, it's not about money. In your apprenticeship years in your 20s, it's not about how much money you're going to make. It's about learning as much as possible and gaining skills. So if there's a mentor out there who doesn't want to pay you, they can't pay you, or the pay is not very good, grab it. Because in the end, what you can learn from the right person is worth 80 times more than any kind of money you could possibly gain, and if you have a choice between 2 jobs in your life, you're 24 and you've got 2 jobs, one in a big company in which you'll make 80,000 euros a year, another in a small kind of startup, which is new, and there are only like 5 people there, and you're only going to maybe make 40,000 if you're lucky. You always take that small company, because you're going to be doing the job of 5 or 6 different people. You're going to learn so much. You'll learn in a year what business school could take you 20 years to learn, because you'll have more hands-on experience, and then you'll be able to make money eventually. So, in choosing a mentor or in choosing the right path in your apprenticeship, it's learning and skills that matter, not money.
I think people can really learn from this. This is a mistake I see a lot of people make, especially when they are choosing a career, like maybe they choose law just because they will make a lot of money, and they are choosing this top tier law firm because, they pay so much more money and it looks good in this ladder, whatever they want to do. And then they maybe get burnt out and they don't even learn as much because they use them, as you talked about a little, as a slave. So it might not be as good. But what do you think about, let's say you're starting a business and then you have some years under your belt and you might not find the right mentor, but you see some people, maybe you don't know them, but you can also pay for someone to be your mentor as well, right?
I've never heard, I was a little bit surprised by that. I've never quite heard of someone actually paying someone to be
it's more like a coach, right? Or whatever. I mean, that's kind of mentorship programs. I've heard a lot of this since I got into more entrepreneurship. I don't know if you studied this as well.
No, I haven't. I mean, you can pay for a coach, I suppose, or you can go into a mentorship program, but I'd be careful about that, because the thing about a a mentor is it's they're excited to teach you as well. It's like I've had mentees before, apprentices who work for me as a writer to do my research, etc. And I get as much out of them in trying to help them with their career. My former apprentice, Ryan Holiday, has now gone on to have a very successful career as a writer and more than that. So it's very satisfying both ways. It's an emotional relationship. We live in such a virtual world where everything is online, etc. This is a personal, intimate, one-on-one relationship that's very satisfying. The problem with a coach is you're always wondering, are they just there to make money? Are they giving me, are they going to reach a point where they're going to say, all right, you can go out on your own, or are they going to keep stringing me along to make money? It depends on if you find the right one. They're good apprenticeship schools, like in the States. There's a guy who I interviewed for the book who has an apprentice school in the Silicon Valley for people who want to do their own tech startups. He doesn't charge them to be in that. He takes a percentage of their company that they eventually will create. So he's making fabulous sums of money. But I guess my point is there has to be a give and take where both people are getting something out of it. And if all they're getting out of it is your money, just if you're going to choose that kind of thing, choose very wisely and be careful.
Yeah, I learned this the hard way. That's why I asked you, and I wanted to bring it up because I know a lot of people that they might be aspiring entrepreneurs. They fall into this trap. They look in all these shiny objects, and I wanted to bring this. I think it's an important point, so people can actually develop these kind of marketable skills or valuable skills. They have something to offer other people. It will be much easier to provide value.
Well, the best relationship in that area is you find an angel who wants to. You have an idea for a business, and they're going to give you either some money to start it up, but they're going to take a percentage if it works, and you don't have to pay them. And why that's better is they're motivated to make your business succeed, because if it succeeds, they're going to take a percentage of it. So the coach that you're paying, what's his or her motivation to really, really, really make you a better entrepreneur? So I'd much rather, if you have a choice, find that angel. I don't know if you have the same word in
Sweden, kind of investor, right, or something going in and helping you, right?
Yeah, but it's usually someone who's older, who's had experience. They're going to teach you the ropes. They're going to teach you the finance stuff that you probably don't know about. Just the whole production element in producing a startup. And in exchange, they're going to take a percentage of your company, a good chunk. So they're in it to make money, but their motivation is your business is going to be so good that I'm going to make more money. There's a give and take going on, so they're motivated to really, really help you.
But I think this is common maybe in the startup space where you have maybe a tech startup, but where you see online entrepreneurs, I think it's less common because obviously they don't have a lot backing up. Like I've seen a lot of people in this space, they started their own, and they make good money now, like even in the millions, but they started without any capital, just maybe for a few $100 they started up their business, and that's it. And I think that's what I mean when I talk about maybe you find a mentor there, because I don't think you can get someone backing you up if you have just this idea of just starting something online. It's not like a tech startup.
The reason why people will do that is, this backs up to what I said earlier. Don't go looking for someone until you're ready. So if you haven't put in the hours to making your idea really great, then don't look for somebody, and don't even look for a coach. Spend your time making it so your idea is so good that when you present it to a possible investor, they'll be interested in working with you because they see that your idea can work.
Definitely.
I don't like that people think that there's an easy way to success. So, all right, I have some idea that I cooked up, a couple hours after, smoking pot one evening, and now I'm going to go pay this guy $10,000 to help me make it a great business. You're in trouble. No, take 3 months to take that idea that you had when you were high and develop it into something really good and solid,
That's good.
and then find an investor. Because if you can't find an investor, it's probably because your idea sucks.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Um, I see people fall into that trap. I don't know if it's the same in Europe as it is here because there's a huge market for investors and angels. They're everywhere. They're looking for the next great idea. I know I was just in France last week to promote my book, and France doesn't have that. They're really struggling. It's much more common in England or in the States. So it depends on where you are. But it's much better to find that person to invest in your idea because that means your idea has some merit to it.
Definitely. And something else that's very important if we move forward here a little bit is what you call social intelligence. That's so important, I think, for kind of how you can interact with other people, the environment, and all this. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the reason I included it, it looks like a little strange chapter in the book
Yeah.
because I'm talking about, how to deal with people when it's a book about mastery. And you would think, well, if I'm a master at painting or music, I don't. Why do I need that? The reason I put it in there is, we're a social animal. You can't really get far in life unless understand people and can work with them. So even if you're a techie, you're a bit of a geek and you're just really great in writing code, well, you'd think, well, I don't have to deal with people. I can get by. But eventually, if you start, your own company, you're going to be dealing with people. And there are manipulative, sharky jerks out there who are going to do something bad to you unless you understand how to deal with people who can be manipulative, how to charm them, how to influence them, how to be someone that others like to work with, how to work with other people, how to cooperate. These are skills. Being social is a skill. It's not something we're born with. And I try and tell you that in this book. You're born actually, by the time you're 20, you're actually quite naive. When you leave the university, you don't have social skills. You don't know what it's like to work in an environment with a lot of egos. You've been sitting there coddled by your parents, if that's who your parents are. Some people don't have that. Coddled by your parents and your teachers, and now you're just thrown into the world where there are all these people with their egos and insecurities and all that. You don't know how to deal with that. You don't have the skills. So you have to develop those skills. And I sort of show you the two aspects towards gaining that skill, which is learning how to read people in the moment, knowing how to be alive to what makes them an individual, what makes them tick, just getting a sense of the perspective of other people, so you're not always just thinking about yourself. And then understanding certain basic laws of human behavior so that you can recognize someone who's passive aggressive or someone who's very envious. Or, for instance, I talk in the book about laziness, that a lot of people are naturally lazy, and what they'll do is they'll come to you to start a project, and they'll say, let's collaborate together on a business or a book. And you go, wow, that's great. I'd love to. You seem interesting. And then you suddenly realize that you're doing all the work, and they're just sitting around, drinking or having parties, and then they'll collect half the money or the paycheck in the end, because they wanted to use you and use your effort and your creativity for themselves. I want you to be able to recognize the difference between someone who legitimately wants to invest in your project and collaborate and someone who's just using you. That kind of is a skill to recognize that. And so that's why I talk about it in the book. And it's going to be the subject of my next book. My next book is only about social intelligence and how to read people on this sort of higher level.
I'm looking forward to that book. That will be interesting because I find that you kind of build, when you're in this, like building your business, it's so important, all the relationship you have around you. In myself, like I built my business. I'm building my business because I associated myself with so many great people. Like I started out, even before I started this show, I did interviews and I learned from them. I try to provide as much value as I possibly can to them, even if I was just starting out. So that is so important, and kind of seeing the moment where that fits, and also like seeing other negative people around me, because it was not easy. I mean, it's always like family, gonna have that around you. You have friends, maybe get rid of toxic friends as well if they're that. I find very important, and that's hard. That's quite hard if they are close to you before.
Yeah, and you're going to make mistakes. You're going to misjudge people's character. It's inevitable. I've made in my 20s and 30s many mistakes, and you learn along the way. But the main thing is to be aware of the fact that it's a skill, that it's not something that just comes natural to you, and you have to pay attention, and you have to, develop this skill. That's the key there. And I have in the book, I talk about Benjamin Franklin as sort of the icon of social intelligence. And I discuss in there, in the beginning of the story, all of the mistakes that he made in judging people. He thinks his brother is this way, and he's not. He thinks this man promising him a new business is amazing, and he's not. On and on and on. And finally he realizes, man, I am really bad at this. I am naive. I don't understand people, and it's making my life miserable. Yeah. And he decides to transform himself into a brilliant, brilliant observer of human nature. And so it's something anybody can learn, but you first have to realize that you're not good at it before you can start developing the skill.
Definitely. And something we bring up quite a few times here is that you have also you need to be willing to fail as well. You cannot succeed right away. Maybe you have to go over some ups and downs and then bounce back again. But if you choose something, you find your life's calling and you're passionate about it, you will come back from these kind of downs as well. Because I had them, and you had them as well. So that's important.
I've had many. I had. Early in my life, I had a man when I was doing journalism who told me that I was not a good writer, that I should give it up and go to law school or business school because I just didn't have the material. And I had things that I wrote that didn't get accepted, all sorts of failures. And I talk in the book of Henry Ford and entrepreneurs and how he, as sort of the classic entrepreneur, failed in a huge way twice in starting a business, which would normally kill a man because you just don't get in a capital intensive business like that. You don't get a second or a third try. And he managed to con some investor into giving him a third try. And the thing about being an entrepreneur is you only learn by doing it. You can read all of the books. You can graduate from the finest business school. It doesn't mean anything until you actually start the business, because you never know how the people out in the real world are going to connect to your product. You never know exactly if the audience is going to love it. You're never going to know if the client's going to really, connect to your idea. You're never really going to know if the people that you've hired to work with really have good character. It's all these unknown variables. And the only way you can learn about how to judge people, how to really connect to an audience, how to accept feedback, is by trying your idea and probably failing and seeing this works, this doesn't work. The second time now I can improve it. If you're a hacker or somebody who builds things with your hands, like any kind of machine, you need the bugs in the machine to tell you how to improve it. You need the bugs in the software to tell you how to make it better. You need the failure to show you what's wrong about yourself, your own limitations, and how you can improve your idea. So I told you you're changing your mentality, and your mentality is everything's a learning experience. It's also every failure is a blessing in disguise, because it's going to make you stronger and better on the next effort.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to one of the last steps here, which is you talk about the creative active, and you always you need to learn more, and you to like experiment and look for problems at different angles, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So I find this very interesting because I'm all about lifelong learning, reading a lot of books. That's kind of how I got into all this. I read tons of books, and I continue to do it. It's not like I stop because I reached a certain level of expertise. I will never stop the learning process. So let's talk a little bit about this as well.
Well, it's something I talked about earlier when I was talking about creativity. Um, the problem that people have in their careers is they go through an apprenticeship phase in their 20s or whatever, and they learn the rules, the procedures, how to be an effective team player, and then they stop. They've just learned enough to be kind of good at it, and they can collect a good paycheck. They're somewhat expert at what they do, but they stop learning. They don't have that love anymore, the connection anymore. And so they're not paying attention to new trends going on in the world. They're not paying attention to how they could improve their ideas. And they're not aware of this happening, but slowly it creeps up on them until something really bad happens. So I want you to maintain that kind of childlike flexibility throughout your life. Um, you can't become, there's no fountain of youth for being forever young, but you can in your head remain somewhat young and fresh, and that means you continually challenge yourself. You think to yourself, I don't know everything. I'm actually not very good at what I do. I need to get better. I need to learn new skills. I'm starting a new project. Everything else I did in the past, I'm throwing out the window. I have to be alive to what's happening. You keep on top of the latest trends. The world changes by the minute. You're not sitting there thinking about how great you were 3 years ago, or about something that you're alive and learning what's going on in the world now. That's the way you're going to maintain your creativity. When I write a book, I'm about to start my sixth book. I'm back at square one. This book could fail miserably. It could be a disaster. I really don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea whether people out there are going to read it at all. I better make it great, and I better learn more than I think I need to learn. So every new idea is a challenge. The brain likes challenges. If you come to the point in your life where you think you know everything, you're going to stop learning, and your mind's just going to freeze up, and bad things will happen. So it's really critical what you talk about, the constant learning. And in my book, in chapter 5, I give you several kind of very practical strategies for kind of getting out of that trap that we all fall into, where we think we know answers and we don't need to learn anymore.
Yeah, but you talk also about that you should acquire more than one skill. Let's say you master this one skill, you're an expert in, let's say I'm expert in personal branding and helping people with that. But doesn't stop there, right? You have to acquire more skills and more. And what's some good skills? Like do you have is anything good for this particular expertise you're going into, or should you maybe choose related skills and master them as well? So
yeah, you should, if you're going into business, should you be learning to play the piano?
Yeah.
There's some value to it. There is value, because learning something like that teaches you patience, and there are other benefits for the brain. But realistically, you could probably choose something that's a little more related, unless eventually the business that you're going to start is related to music in some way. So it depends on your field. For me, it's easy because everything that I do, I can somehow incorporate in my books. If I'm on the board of directors of a publicly traded company, I'm learning a lot about business, which I didn't know before. I can now incorporate that in all of my books. For some people, it's not so easy. So yeah, the skills that you want somehow relate to your life's task. And are somehow something that excite you, and they can be somewhat unrelated to what your core, and you're going to maybe combine them in a way later on, because sometimes in life there's not just one thing that fascinates us. Sometimes there's two. I wouldn't go thinking there's three or four, because that's not right. You're going to have other problems. But let's say there's two things and they're not totally related. That's fine, because you'll find a way to connect them. I talked about in the book about Yoki Matsuoka, who as a child was a great tennis player. She loved sports, and then she got into electrical engineering and robotics, two things that are, sports and that seem so unrelated. But she thought she found a connection to them in that she later designed the perfect robotic hand because she was so fascinated with the hand in sports. So you'll make a connection at some point. So they can be unrelated, but they have to be something that personally excites and interests you.
But have you found a specific way if you want to learn something quickly or faster? Let's say you're like a natural. I mean, I like to listen to audiobooks, but sometimes when I maybe want to write something down, I read it and I pick up your. Let's say I want to make notes of your book. It's easier for me maybe to read it than just listen to it, for example. Have you found a way that's kind of faster for you to learn, or something other people can apply to their learning when they acquire
No,
new skills?
because learning isn't just a question of taking in information. There's a depth that's involved. It has to be absorbed into your long-term memory. We've all had the experience. I remember when I was in college, to graduate, I had to take a class in the sciences because I had a background in the arts. I had to take a class in pharmacology. And in the space of 3 weeks, I had to memorize like 1,000 different drugs and what happens to them in the body. I can't retain one single bit of that knowledge now. It just went in one ear and out the other. So there's learning something like that, and there's like really absorbing it and paying and getting it deep in there. So that's what you want. You want to get a skill that's wired into your nervous system. You want to repeat something over and over and over again, not to the point of boredom, because that has other problems. But it's the intensity of your concentration that matters. So it's better to spend a half hour doing something in which you're so focused. The door is closed, the internet is off, nobody can bother you. You spend a half hour and you really look at something. Then, as opposed to 4 hours where you're kind of half paying attention, you're going like this, people are talking to you, nothing gets absorbed into the soil and it's useless. So the quality of your attention, the focus, the intensity is what will make you learn faster, you know? If you're wanting to learn French and you go to France and you're speaking it every day, you're going to learn really fast.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up because I studied French like in high school and even before. I studied for many years, but it never went in. It's probably back there somewhere, right? But I cannot, maybe, but I cannot speak it fluently. And that's probably because maybe at the time, maybe the teachers, they were not good or whatever. I didn't pay attention too much. And if I went to France or something, then I would probably learn so much faster.
That's right.
Because I'm passionate about it. Maybe I would read books in French or whatever, and that's how you learn, for sure.
Yeah, and you have to learn because you're there and people are you can't order something on the menu and people are getting angry at you for this stuff. You have to learn, so you learn quickly. It's the quality of your attention that will make you learn faster, and how focused you are. That's the only shortcut I can think of.
That's awesome. We're reaching the end here, but if you can maybe get like maybe 3 pieces of advice based that you have in your book, and if someone wants to become a master in their field, what should they do, and what's your advice here, so you can summarize a little bit?
Well, we've kind of covered everything, but I'll look at it. Let's go at it from a slightly different angle. The same ideas. The key is choosing the right career and the vocation. Everything else will kind of fall into place if you're able to do that. But it's more than that. It's the ability to know who you are, and it's not easy. It seems so obvious, but it's not easy because in the world we live in with Facebook and social media, etc., we listen so much to other people that we're not really aware anymore of the things that we like and we don't like. And so we make really bad decisions in the world. So, for instance, when that man told me, when he the editor of an article I had written for a magazine, he told me that I was a bad writer and that I shouldn't write, that I should give up. If I were listening to him and to all the other voices in the world, I probably would have said, "Gosh, you're right. I just need to go to business school or law school," and probably I would be dead by now, or I'd be fat and bald and miserable because I would have made a wrong choice. But I was able to listen to myself and say, no, I know that I like writing. I love it. I'm not going to listen to you. Yeah, maybe journalism isn't right, but I know me. I know what I love, and I love this, and I'm going to make it work somehow. But a lot of people aren't listening to themselves. They're not tuned to what they really love. They're not paying attention. So when something bad happens, they make a really poor choice, a poor response to this, because they're thinking what their parents are telling them to do or what other people. So getting in touch with yourself and what you really like and who you are and what makes you different connects to my second thought here on mastery. Your problem that you face in the world is that by the time you're 35, let's just be blunt about it, by the time you're 35, you're replaceable in this world. You've got a skill that 1,000 other people can do, 1,000 other people who are 24, who are going to charge, who I could pay half as much, and who are more energetic and youthful, and therefore you're downsized, you're redundant, and that's going to inevitably happen to you unless you have something that makes you different from others. You have a set of skills that makes it so nobody can replace you. Okay, so finding that voice inside of you that tells you I was meant to do this, learning the skills that you were meant to learn that really appeal to you, and then letting things happen. An opportunity comes, and you start a business or you write a book or whatever it is that's different, weird, peculiar, it just reflects who you are. There's nobody else who can do it, and that's the key to success. If you look great, there's no other somebody else like Steve Jobs. There's nobody who could do what he does. He's so weird. Being unique and different and weird is a good thing. It means you've realized something about yourself that happened when you were born, and you're going to realize your potential, your creativity. So don't be afraid of what makes you strong, which is your uniqueness, what is about you, and listen and connect to yourself. Those are sort of maybe the two.
That's great. That's awesome. And first of all, I would like to thank you. And where can people find you if they want to check out more of your amazing work?
Oh, well, all my books are available on Amazon.com. But I have a website called PowerSeductionAndWar.com. Those are the titles of my first three books. The "and" is spelled out, so PowerSeductionAndWar.com. And there's blogs which I haven't updated in a few years, but I will. But there are all sorts of links to mastery and to interviews I've given. I've been doing a lot of public speaking lately. You'll find all of my talks, my TED talk that I did recently. Yeah. So Power, Seduction, and War would be the best way to enter into my world.
Awesome. I will link it up in the show notes over at navid.me/13. So there you can find all of what we've talked today. We covered a lot of stuff, so I'm sure my audience will find a lot of value. And to me, this was very powerful to have you on my show. So thanks so much, Robert, for coming on here.
My pleasure, Navid. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Thanks. Wow. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode with Robert Greene. This was very powerful for me personally, and I think Robert really over-delivered on this one. So now it's your turn. I would like you to head over to the blog at navid.me/13 and share your thoughts there. What was your biggest takeaway from this episode? Do you believe that you can master and learn any skill? Share your thoughts in the comments over at navid.me/13. I'd love to know, and I'll respond to every single one. So before I wrap it up here, I just want to invite you to join my exclusive newsletter where I share more greatness with you weekly. And I just actually put together a private Facebook group for this lifestyle architects community. There's a lot of amazing people in there already asking questions, sharing advice, and all this good stuff. And you will get instant access to this group when you sign up over at navid.me. So thanks so much for tuning in to this podcast episode with Robert Greene. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you very soon.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Lifestyle Architects Show.
For more information and to learn more about Navid's journey and how to start your own,
please visit navid.me.